This is the AI-assisted organization podcast, hosted by myself, Piers and Aalok, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. Aalok.
Hey Piers, how are you?
All right, so I'm in the northwest. Well, there's been a lot going on. We'll talk about our events as well. And where are you? Back in Lisbon?
Yeah, back in Lisbon now.
So you'll be glad to hear, if you're a regular listener to our podcast, that we're actually now, we've talked about this for quite a while. We're going to sort of professionalize it. So we've actually got a team to help us scale it up. We're going to start inviting guests. We'll be sort of bi-weekly, I think. So we'll try and do, probably 20, 25 a year. So hopefully you'll see that change up, probably from April. So we're looking forward to that. And again, I want to start off with, if you haven't registered yet, if you're a company of, say, 20 people plus in terms of employees, we've got an event on the 31st of March in central London. It's near Moorgate, the Tube, if you know it. It's in the city, essentially. It starts at about 12, we'll go on until 3:30. There's two parts to it. There's like a strategic overview. We're also going to be sort of soft launching and showing our AI agent platform. And then after a few nibbles, there's going to be a second section where we're going to sort of deep dive really into a workshop, isn't it, about showing you what an agent is and how to set one up.
Exactly. Like the whole point here is that all businesses need to have a digital workforce to work alongside their humans, but many business owners don't know exactly what can be done, how they work, and how it connects and integrates into your business. So we'll be covering that exactly.
Yeah, so that's going to be quite a big event for us. So it's kind of like our first annual event. So hopefully in years to come, this will be the first of a AI, Implement AI Con, or whatever we end up calling it. So we're looking forward to that. So this show, we're going to be slightly different. I wrote a great article actually about healthcare. So we're going to talk through a lot of what was in the article about the healthcare opportunity and AI agents. We are going to kind of relate it as well to other sectors, because you can apply a lot of what we're talking about to, professional services, law, lots of other sectors. So we're going to try and do that as well. But we're going to sort of go through and talk about, the big ideas in the article, and you can find the article on LinkedIn if you want to find that. Big ideas are sort of the personalized approach, both in healthcare, but just generally. How does AI help you become, create a more personalized experience, better engagement, and sort of hyper personalized marketing in many ways. Initial engagement, so data collection, triage, response, monitoring, proposals. How do you do that quickly? How do you do that so that you create a competitive advantage against your competitors that are probably not using AI to do that? And the last one really is about the kind of 360 view of your customer engagements, your clients, that complete kind of documentation of the engagement, the process. And that can be useful for transparency, for audit. If you're a regulated business, for example, that can be quite important as well. So it's documenting that entire client journey. So they're the three big ideas we're going to go through. And then we'll talk about other things we're up to. If you're new to the show, we Implement AI. We help businesses at kind of all sizes implement AI, essentially. So it's digital workers, AI agents, helping you to boost revenue, optimize your costs, augment your team, and be more successful. And essentially what we're trying to do is help our clients build what we call an AI OS, an AI operating system, so that your business evolves and grows with this technology. Right, Aalok, over to you. Let's talk about sort of the personalized approach, really, and especially, this sort of shift to personalizing client engagement, services, and products as well. But this is more sort of personal services.
Yeah, so within healthcare, most of it has been traditionally sick care. So the problem is that when you get ill, that's when you will kind of go to a hospital or a doctor and get some solution for just what that is happening at that point in time. The thing is, what this does is it's a completely reactive system. So it's a bit like every time your machine breaks down, just getting a fix for that machine, but not looking at the deeper elements from that. So the shift now is basically looking towards healthspan and preventive healthcare. So what that means is basically, how can you not be not sick, how can you be as healthy and as energized and live as long as possible? So that's what's called health span, having as many excellent years of health, energy, and vitality as you possibly can. So within the health sector specifically, it's all organized around sick care. So the thing is, but there's a lot more people that want to live longer. Some people might have heard of Brian Johnson or some different things with his blueprint, or other people might be aware of like, Peter Diamandis or other things to do with longevity. And basically everyone wants to live longer. So the question is, there's so many new technologies, supplements, approaches, all these things which can increase people's health so they can live longer, feel better, feel younger. But those are not available in the traditional NHS because it's not designed for that. That's designed to like stop you from basically being sick. So this is the opportunity, is to basically identify for each person where they are, what their goals are, and then putting together what we call a care plan. So I'll give a health example, then I'll give a different example. So as an example, let's just say you're a 45-year-old male. You want to increase your energy. You want to maybe lose a bit of weight. You maybe want to increase, like muscle mass, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, also you want to improve concentration and do not do anything that would affect longevity to improve your longevity. So there, what it would be, a clinic could, for example, do an assessment with you, or AI could initially do assessments with you, find out your goals. So it could be like, hey, and you could talk with the agent about like, I want to improve my energy, feel better, feel, much better, live longer. I can connect in my Apple Health or my wearables and different things. And then all of that can create a picture of the person. And then this is the key thing. You can then, based on their age, sex, and demographics, and also what their goals are, and potentially medical history, put together a care pathway. So what's that? A care pathway is like the ideal steps, the ideal elements that person would go over the next, say, 5 years, 12 months, whatever you want to call it, basically. But these are the points, like if you have these things, you can then optimize and hit your target. So this is not reactive, this is proactive. So it's like, for example, it might be, okay, we recommend you go on this, blood supplement regime, or we recommend you, come for these procedures, or we recommend you try these weight loss injections or whatever it is. I'm not recommending any of this stuff. I'm just simply giving the principle, you got these things. Same thing with someone with, like, for example, a knee pain. They might be getting a knee injection, then some other steps and things of scans and stuff like this. How could this work in another industry? Very similar. So let's just say, for example, finance. Like, let's say you're, again, 45, you want to retire at a certain age. You want to make sure you can take care of people in a particular way. You also want to make sure that you can go on certain holidays. So again, understanding your goals, it can help put together an outline of a plan for you, basically, right? And then that can then be guided. So the point here is like, the plan should be optimized to give the best results for the person. But then also commercially, it also gives the maximum engagement for the business. So you're able to help people go into a much, much better way. So that's the kind of big idea, that you can go from reactive to proactive, and you can go from intermittent to continuous, basically, right? And that's where you can have agents which are able to communicate in between there as well.
And also another example is retail as well. Any retail, really. It's this kind of idea of like a personalized plan, a personalized recommendation. So the first step is going to be engaging and extracting as much information as you possibly can. And we think one of the best ways of doing this is voice. Because voice is where typing, forms, paying a human to call somebody. And people always worry about, do people care about that being called by an AI agent? Sometimes people don't know, that they can't tell the difference. But if you want to, you can tell them that you're actually providing a service. The agent's calling them to have a conversation and extract this information. Obviously, you wouldn't call it that, but to extract this information to then try and create a proposal or a plan, and whatever it might be. And that could be anything from, healthcare, this sort of healthspan, which is a massive new opportunity, to almost any e-commerce. And then over time, they may have a treatment, they may buy something, they may have a consultation with a wealth manager or a clinician. And then over time, you may have another conversation with them, say, how did it go? How did you feel? So you can keep iterating and optimizing that product or that service.
Exactly. So if you just think about data points, right? So like, for example, at the initial point when you're trying to engage with somebody, they might type at 25 to 30 words per minute, but someone's talking at like 150 to 250 words a minute. So you can get a lot more context and a lot more social history and a lot more background about that person. So talking on that retail example, again, if they're, let's say, for example, they're buying something which could be linked to a particular event, or let's say a party or something like this, if they're trying to look for one item, if you also understood that they're trying to like achieve these 3 other things, you could then recommend and say, hey, based on what you're saying, you could also go with these 4 other things, which might be on completely different pages of your website, which they would not come across otherwise, because they're organized by product, not by outcome, essentially, right? Like, so again, there's a lot more things you can do to maximize the life cycle of that customer, and also the lifetime value, really. So that's that whole approach, personalized approach, whether it's like a personalized recommendations and different things. And just to kind of give that caveat, I'm just talking about giving the data capture and the actual information which can be given as a guidance. It's not telling a patient what to do or what not to do. That comes from a regulated person. But I'm just giving the principle that you can do a lot of pre-screening and information. You can always have caveats like this is informational purposes only, just like people do on Google and stuff like that.
And I think we talk to a lot of people in regulated industries, be it healthcare, professional services, law, for example, or accounting. And it's that point about if you're concerned about the regulated activity, that's fine. We'll come back to that. But there's so much around that in any business that you can still automate. So let's just deep dive a little bit more, though. So in that personalized approach, you've got this, and we kind of touched on it, this initial engagement. This is probably the second section about the data collection, the triage, monitoring, support as well.
Yeah, exactly. So then the whole point here is that so how does that actually work? So for example, you've got a person where you don't know anything about them. They've come to a particular page on your website about a particular procedure or whatever it is, for example. So then at that point, that's where they could, either click on a website, talk to a voice agent on the website, or they could have the details and then be called by the agent on their phone. And this is where it's like finding out information about them in terms of what their priorities are, what symptoms they've got, what issues. Maybe there's additional data that's captured, like a photo of their recent blood test from a different place, or maybe a photo of a skin condition or whatever like this, or maybe it's a video of their face and it's also extracting from that, some BMI elements and then resting pulse rate, different things. There's so many pieces of data you can now capture, but not just capture, analyze, organize, and synthesize, basically, right? And then what that means is that you're able to then, help make it a lot more convenient for the customer to kind of get on with things, basically. And it means that your agents are able to do that, not just in English, but they can be multilingual too. And then you can also create very nice touches as well, where once they've given all that information, the agent, for example, could prepare a mini report and just say, and send it to them directly by email or by WhatsApp, saying, this is what we discussed, these are the issues, thank you so much for this, it's now been forwarded to the team, one of the doctors is going to be in touch with you, basically, or one of the pharmacists is going to be in touch with you, whatever it is, basically. But that just creates that professionalism, because remember, these types of new health conditions or health procedures, this is basically retail medicine. This is people choosing what they want to kind of get. So they're going to go to wherever's got the best consumer experience for them, basically, right? So the more professional it can be, the less they feel they need to repeat themselves, and the easier you make it for them than having to type out lots of stuff. That's going to be really, really good, basically, right? Because obviously if someone fills out a web form and they answer a few questions about, I want to live longer and do this, they may not also tell you that they're celiac or pre-diabetic or they got this because there was no space to put it on the form, or they were not prompted in remembering to do that. But this is where that guided data capture can totally help with that, and it just creates that customization. Now, why is that important? That's important because what you can then start taking people down is a completely customized journey. So let's imagine that, right? So the agent spoke to the person, knows their age, 45 years old, knows they're male, knows their goals of losing weight, building muscle, having more energy, all that kind of stuff. Right? They know they've got a family risk of high blood pressure, heart issues and stuff like this. What it can then do is it can then also configure so that when they have newsletters or email correspondence, you can have different paragraphs, like paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. You can have paragraph 2, which is a placeholder for anything only relevant to that person, basically, right? And again, let's say, for example, at the bottom of your email, where it's product 1, product 2, product 3 recommendation, those could be placeholders which can be switched out, again, based on, what that person's looking at. So the data will be different for 45-year-old male, or let's say, for example, 35-year-old female that wants to optimize for conceiving or something like this, or let's just say, for example, 30-year-old male that's just been diagnosed with celiac or whatever it's like this, or let's just say, for example, 65-year-old male that wants to overcome some arthritis and some different elements and different things like this. Everybody's got something different, but rather than all getting the same spring newsletter from the pharmacy or from the clinic or whatever like this, they can get your personalized recommendations for spring, basically, right? And then it could be, hormone optimization or procedures or different things like this. So this just helps you become much more relevant, basically, right? Because what the data that you took at the beginning, you're using it through your journey. So that's what we call you using data streams from agents as well, basically.
I think it's also, so I think this is huge, actually. So we always give the example, and you can use this in multimodal. You can send, obviously, but maybe not healthcare, but you can send photos of information as well to collect it. But who's going to win that customer? Is it the organization that responds immediately, or an agent calls them and it sort of extracts information and it uses the information to create a proposal or something just that's personalised, and it sends it straight back to them. Is it that company, or is the one that collects an email, they fill out a form, which they don't really want to do, and then maybe in 48 hours, they get a standard email with a standard response? I think you know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the point is that initial engagement, that ability to respond quickly, to triage, to hyper-personalized response, I think is where you can actually create a huge competitive advantage. And this could work in financial services as well, where you're collecting data about somebody. It's not, might not be super personal information, but you're collecting sort of a kind of a roundabout picture of them, so that either the sort of human team in many ways can then respond and sort of deep dive as well. Even the logistic, verifying shipment details, you can use it in lots of different ways. Any contact, be it on the web or they filled out a form or any way, you can respond to them very, very quickly in a really sort of personalized way.
I'll give an example. I ordered some stuff from a e-commerce company in the UK, and to be perfectly honest, I spent quite a lot because it was some very expensive supplements, and it's been very poor service basically, right? Because I do know that there's going to be import duties and issues like that because it's coming to Portugal, which is fine. But the thing is that their tracking email was very poor, didn't have the details on it. Then on top of that, I didn't get any notification that it was actually with the company for providing information or anything like this with customs. And so in the whole thing, I was emailing and asking like what's going on. Then 3-4 days later, they're replying to me and then saying, oh, this is the information. Sorry, we're going to refund you this and then send you that. And then in the end, when I got something finally, it still didn't have the stuff. Versus like, for example, agents saying like, look, now it's going to be in customs processing. Please look out for this. Or the agent could on the human's behalf, because that's fully manual, their service, reach out and provide the information on different things. Even like, it could help pre-populate the form, because like, why do you have to keep typing in the same information all the time when you've already given that to the company to begin with? So again, this whole customer assistance, customer success, guiding them, following up, especially when it's high value stuff, when you're spending quite a lot of money on that, on a particular product, which they're going to have to repurchase at some point, you can do your own calculations about what that customer lifetime value could be. So definitely that support and engagement is very important.
I've got some friends with a similar company with vitamins and supplements. And I'll keep talking about doing this, is that, so, I've done it myself, but you only know what you know, and you might have a particular issue that's, front of mind, and then you go and buy supplements, vitamins relating to that. But actually, if that agent called you and said, hello, you're looking at buying these vitamins, or you bought them even, did you know that based on your profile, or tell me a bit about yourself, you should probably also be taking this as well? You probably didn't even know. So the ability to cross-sell and upsell, using agents that have got perfect product information, perfect information about the customer, they can connect the two as well, within the boundaries if it's regulated. Just adding 5 or 10% more revenue in that sale makes a massive difference.
You can add a lot more value, because like, for example, certain supplements increase absorption if you're taking with other things, or even particular times of the day. So again, if it just gave you a guidance and saying, by the way, these things are coming for you, vitamin A, DK, or whatever it is like this, we recommend these sorts of things. Obviously, consult your doctor. Obviously, follow the different things. But most people use like this. That's just a lot of value added, in that kind of whole journey.
So let's talk a bit about implement AI. So again, if you're new to us, we're launching our AI agent platform. We're soft launching it on the 31st of March. So come to that event if you can. There's lots of links on our social media, basically. But we basically provide businesses with digital workers. So our strapline really is grow your workforce, not your payroll. And what we're now doing is rolling out a platform where it's going to be far easier to deploy our workers and set them up and manage them over time. Or teams even, actually, yeah. And then we've got teams, agents that have tools that they can perform tasks. So the world's changing very, very quickly. The difference with us is that we're actually learning by doing this, not talking about it and building sort of solutions in some vacuum. We've built our platform around 2 years now, working with SMEs of all sizes. I think there's some large enterprises now, but how do you actually implement AI? The technological frontier is moving out very, very quickly. The reality is somewhere behind that. And how you then connect that into your business and your data and your teams and your people is what we do. So come to the event, 31st of March, Central London. It's in Moorgate. It's focused on people really with sort of 20 employees plus, I would say. That's our kind of the target for that. 2 sections. One's going to be about strategy agents. What are they? Why should you be using them? And the second half, after a few nibbles, is going to be more about a deep dive, a workshop about how do you actually start to implement agents and what can they do in your business. Right, so segment 3 is really about this, what we call complete, sounds really exciting, complete documentation. So this ability to have transparency, an audit path, again, a good thing if you're a regulated business, both in healthcare as well, but also works in law, finance, lots of other industries too.
Exactly. So if you think about when somebody gets something recommended to them, let's just say like a health treatment or a financial product or whatever it is like this, there needs to be proof of a journey of decision-making and consent. So consent is not like, I just signed a form and I've got no ideas, like Apple terms and service. That doesn't work actually, because like the person can turn around and say, I didn't understand what I signed. And then, medical legally, they don't have consent in that situation. So the point here is that how can you, if you want to scale your business, that means interacting with more patients, more customers, whatever it is like this. But this also means that you need to then have very clear documentation of every single journey, because, the chances of having audit or risk or complaints and different things like this can happen, of course. Even with the best intentions of the world, misunderstandings or different things can happen. But the difference is, if you've been relying on, let's say, humans only, and they're trying to be extra nice and trying to be extra polite and working hard, but none of those contracts are recorded, none of those details are captured, then ultimately just comes down to what the patient said or what the clinician said, and then typically it tends to side with the patient because they feel they got better memory. So the point here is that having complete documentation means that the calls are recorded at the start. So again, you have the notice that calls are recorded for training purposes, but you can proactively, for example, we've got a call analyst that can spot people that are complaining about something, or people that had a missed opportunity. They inquired a procedure or a solution but didn't book an appointment, or people that booked an appointment but then they've got a concern about something or a price concern. All these things can be proactively screened and identified to help try and solve before it becomes a big issue. So imagine, for example, your practice manager has a screen where they can see only the people that have basically concerns and complaints, essentially. And then your head of sales, your treatment coordinator, can get a list of people that have, inquired about a service but didn't book an appointment because they were confused or whatever it is. These are 2 ways where you've got data streams and complete documentation there. And at the same time, you've also got the ability to actually change the outcome, to increase a sale or to prevent a problem. And all of this can also be synced to your CRM or your patient record management system and stuff like that. That's one example. Then when you're looking at when they've also then done the consultations with the agents themselves have memory. So if they're actually talking with a phone agent or talking with a web agent, they put their name or their email in, again, it can be hi, Michael, yes, how's the arthritis going? Is there anything else I can help you with? And again, it knows the content from the previous conversation.
They've got, unlike humans, they've got perfect memory.
Exactly. So imagine, for example, in a clinic where a new receptionist has now joined the front, and the patient who's been coming regularly for the last 3 months comes in, unless there's someone to do a soft intro, say, oh, this is Michael, he's been coming so many times, that new receptionist doesn't know that context, basically, right? But then obviously you've got human situations where you're onboarding and training that person the right way to be able to guide them. This is where agents can potentially help fill in the gap, because before that patient even comes in, it could provide a summary to the receptionist where they could just click on it, say, okay, I've got this patient coming in, let me see a bit about that person. They can see that whole conversation, that whole information that they kind of had in the first place, and even potential recommendations by the report of the agent as well. So what this does is it can show, the whole conversation. It can show that all information, options were given. So another important thing is to make sure that everybody knows different options, that you recommend one option, but you have to make sure that they were aware of the alternatives. This is the same in financial services or something. You recommended this product, but you also got these other options. But even in e-commerce or B2B, it could be you go with this product, but these are your alternatives as well. Just documenting all this stuff just shows a very professional, very thorough approach to the customer. But it also means that all this stuff can be auditable. So let's just say, for example, something happened, and then you're saying, okay, tell me about this patient. You can say, okay, here's all the phone call conversations we had with this person. Here's what the AI actually sent to them as reports and stuff like this. Here's an in-clinic consultation, because we've also got agents which can do in-person consultations to assist the professional. And again, that's all recorded, and their buying criteria or their problems are identified. all those things can be kind of like kept together to help that person understand everything. And even you've got the agents which can call somebody after a procedure and say, hey, how are you getting on? Like, you had this Botox injection or whatever it is, or you had a weight loss treatment or whatever it is. How are you getting on with the medicine? Do you have any stomach ache? Do you have any problems? Is there anything we should be concerned about? All these pieces of data add to that comprehensive documentation for that customer lifecycle. And that means that, like, for any kind of like audit or regulatory position, you've got that, proof of all those bits of conversation. Now, these help the clinician and the team perfectly understand about that person, but it also helps that patient feel like looked after, because they don't feel they're abandoned in any way, where they just kind of came in, had something done, and they've got all these doubts, and they try and call, and the receptionist is saying, I can only book you in next week, and then they have to be booked in next week for something, and then that's taking up an appointment time which didn't even need to be taken up sometimes, because they just needed some reassurance in some way. And again, those pieces can be captured. So for example, let's say somebody was worried about something, rather than phoning the reception and saying about that, they could then phone the reception, but then also, take a photo, send that across, have those details in that kind of area. So the point here is that you've got that documentation for audit purposes, but then you've also got all of that data to be able to recommend better products or services or treatments.
That loops back to where we started, actually. So exactly. I think that what I would add is that essentially capturing this data means you can give more personalized services, kind of where we started, but also it's reducing risk. And people think that AI is a danger in a regulated business. It's the complete opposite. And the point is that around that regulated activity, what that is, you have all the business operations any other business have, so from marketing to engagement to customer success to support, whatever that might be, that can be automated. The agents can be used to capture far more sort of fine-grained, really important information, and use that to be much more personal. But then you have a perfect audit trail. You've got perfect information, which, let's face it, a human, even the best intention, the best person on the phone, their notes are never going to be as detailed as an agent's notes. Because the agent captures all the information. So even if you wanted to go back to the actual conversation, the transcript, you've got it, but it's always going to capture those summaries in the way that you actually want them to be captured. So it's kind of a loop, really. So any business can work in legal compliance, finance. I think even aviation, actually, we were saying monitoring flight data to ensure sort of safety compliance, cybersecurity, anywhere, any business where you're regulated is quite important. But any business generally, to be honest with you, having information about matters. E-commerce, yeah.
Everything, because basically what you're doing here is you're understanding the customer's life cycle, and you're then able to then act on that for the future, because then that's the whole point that we're going to kind of cover in this event on at the end of the month is like there's layers to this. So once you've got like the kind of like levels of data capture and the streaming, you can then have different agents which analyze that and then recommend other things or kind of guide next steps and different elements like this. So the whole point here is like, just to make it super clear, the agents can be responsible for like perfect data capture and everything like this. The decisions can be by the regulated person, right? So you separate those two things out, basically, like decision-making, regulated person. But the data to make the decision, the AI can help you make it much, much better and prove that you are much more comprehensive than somebody else, basically, right?
And the follow-ups typically isn't going to be a regulated activity, depending on what sector you're in. But that follow-up, that engagement, how are you? How's it going? Do you need another consultation, whether that's healthcare or finance? That's a service that most people just don't get. People feel as though, typically in most businesses, they're forgotten about until something happens or there's a problem. And that's something you can rapidly overcome. So right, so we kind of covered it for today. It's about half an hour. We'll try and keep it lean and mean for you. So again, we'll mention it again, 31st of March. We're kind of almost at capacity, really, but we're just trying to really sort of pad it out. Moorgate, London, noon to 3:30 p.m. Please do join us if you've got a business with over sort of 20 employees. So that's the big news for us. We're going to be, again, this podcast, we've got a team working on it going forwards. So it's going to sort of change, it's going to be a little bit different, but hopefully that's going to be for the better. We want to scale it. We think it's great information, this podcast. And more as we start to roll out our platform, there's going to be more and more use cases, examples, case studies, testimonials. We've got another great example, actually, which is we're working with a client that is sort of in sort of grant application. So a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, actually, in terms of initial engagement, having perfect information, having an audit trail can be quite really important in that sector as well. So look out for our demos. They're on LinkedIn. We have a lot of content out on LinkedIn. We've got white papers in our resources center on our website, implementai.io. I've got a great white paper in there called Putting AI to Work. The other one's coming. If you like the podcast, please follow us. Please subscribe to our content. Subscribe to the AI Insider newsletter. It's often kind of based on the podcast. And also give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. That's it, really. Anything else, Aalok?
No, all good.
So there you go. 3 big ideas there. One was personalized approach, initial engagement, get there first, and then you've got this sort of complete documentation, this complete 360 view. We're trying to think of what we're going to call this, whether it's something CRM, but this is a new CRM for your business. It's a new way of using data. And it's really ECRM, we're going to put some funky, cool name for it, don't you worry. But it is a game changer. And the people who get there first are the ones that are going to win. That's it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks.